thank you so much for talking to us. This is a slightly peculiar, unusual way of doing an interview.
I can't tell you how much I sympathise with the way everybody has had to endure this unbelievably testing and challenging time.
Many people who follow the royal story know King Charles as a man who has lived under constant public attention, balancing duty, family, and tradition. But new claims are now bringing fresh debate about his private feelings and past decisions. Reports linked to Tom Bower's account suggest that secret letters may reveal whether he truly wanted Camilla to become queen, or if the situation was more complicated behind closed doors. So, what do these so-called secret letters actually say? Could they change the way people understand Charles and Camilla's relationship? Do you think these revelations suggest hidden pressure, private doubts, and difficult choices? Or is there another side to the story that has not been fully told yet? Let us know what you think in the comments. And to stay updated with more royal stories like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any updates. Origin of Charles and Camilla controversy. According to the revelations presented by biographer Tom Bower, the origins of the controversy around King Charles III and Camilla Parker Bowles are far more complex and long-running than many people first understood. In his accounts, Bower describes their relationship as something that did not suddenly appear in the public eye, but instead developed over many years through quiet contact, changing life circumstances, and repeated private reconnections that slowly built public attention and debate. In the early 1970s, Charles met Camilla Parker Bowles, a young woman moving within the same social world. According to Bower's telling, their first meeting happened in a relaxed social setting where they quickly formed a natural connection. They shared similar humor, interests, and ways of thinking, which made their early bond feel easy and familiar. At that time, neither of them was under the level of public pressure that would come later in their lives. However, Bower explains that timing played a major role in what happened next. Their early relationship did not develop into a formal engagement or marriage. Instead, life events quickly separated them. In 1973, Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles. Around the same period, Charles was focused on his royal duties and military service. Even though their romantic path paused, Bower's account highlights that the emotional connection between them did not fully disappear. Instead, it shifted into a quieter, less visible form. One of the central points in Bower's interpretation is that their contact continued even after marriage separated them. He suggests that their relationship did not completely end, but instead moved into the background of their lives. This ongoing connection, according to his narrative, is one of the key reasons the later controversy became so strong. It created a long history that would eventually collide with public expectations about royal behavior and duty. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, Charles's public profile had grown significantly. As the future king, every part of his personal life began to attract attention. During this period, he began a relationship with Lady Diana Spencer, and their engagement and marriage in 1981 became one of the most famous royal events of the time. Bower describes this moment as a turning point, where public hope and expectations were extremely high. Many people believed this marriage represented a new beginning for the monarchy. However, according to Bower, the earlier connection between Charles and Camilla remained an unresolved presence. He suggests that their past bond did not simply fade away because of marriage and public duty. Instead, it continued in the background and later reappeared, creating emotional and public tension. This background detail, as Bower presents it, is central to understanding why the story later became controversial. As the 1980s progressed, the marriage between Charles and Diana began to face serious difficulties. The strain between them became more visible, and public attention increased. At the same time, Camilla's name started to appear more frequently in media discussions. Bower's account explains that this was not a sudden development, but rather the result of long-standing connections becoming more visible under intense public scrutiny. By 1992, Charles and Diana separated, and their divorce was finalized in 1996. Bauer describes this period as one of the most intense phases of public attention for the royal family. Private struggles became public knowledge, and the earlier relationship between Charles and Camilla was no longer just rumored. It was openly discussed in newspapers and books. According to his interpretation, this moment marked the point where private history turned into public controversy. The situation became even more emotionally charged after Diana's death in 1997.
Just to confirm the news that Diana, Princess of Wales, has died in a car accident.
Bauer explains that public reaction at the time was extremely strong, and Camilla faced widespread criticism. She stayed out of public view for a period, while attention on the royal family remained intense. In his account, this was one of the most difficult moments in the entire story, as public emotion and private reality sharply collided. Despite this, Bauer notes that Charles and Camilla's relationship did not end. Instead, it continued in a more careful and private way. Over time, public attitudes slowly began to shift as people gained a clearer understanding of the long history between them. What had once been seen mainly through scandal and rumor began to be viewed by some as a relationship that had endured over decades, despite separation, marriage, and public pressure. In the early 2000s, Charles and Camilla began appearing together more openly. Bauer describes this stage as a carefully managed transition from private life to public acceptance. Their relationship was no longer hidden, and the royal family gradually prepared for a new public reality. This shift brought mixed reactions. Some people saw it as the final step in a long personal journey, while others still carried emotional reservations from the past. Their marriage in 2005 marked the official recognition of their relationship. According to Bauer's framing, this event was not the beginning of their story, but rather the conclusion of a long and complicated timeline that had stretched across decades. The wedding represented a formal acceptance of a relationship that had existed in various forms since the early 1970s. Even after the marriage, public opinion remained divided for some time. However, Camilla's role gradually became more accepted, and her public image slowly changed. Bauer's account suggests that this change was the result of time, visibility, and a growing willingness among the public to view the relationship in a broader historical context, rather than focusing only on specific moments of controversy. Who is Tom Bauer, and why does his claims matter? Let's take a closer look. The man behind the royal controversies. Tom Bauer is a British investigative writer and former journalist known for his detailed books about powerful people and institutions. He built his reputation by investigating business leaders, politicians, and members of the royal family, often focusing on hidden conflicts and private disputes. Over the years, Tom Bauer has become known for writing biographies that reveal difficult or controversial details about public figures. His books are often based on long research, many interviews, and careful review of documents, which helps him build strong claims that attract public attention. His work on the royal family has been especially talked about because it often presents personal stories that are not widely shared in public. This includes claims about relationships, private meetings, and internal disagreements within the monarchy, which many readers find surprising or controversial. Because of this, his books often receive both praise and criticism, depending on how readers view his access to information and his interpretation of events. Supporters say he brings hidden details into the open, while critics argue that some claims rely heavily on unnamed sources or personal interpretation. Despite debate around his methods, his work continues to influence how people talk about the royal family in the media and online discussions. Many readers follow his books closely because they believe he provides insights that are rarely shown in official statements or public appearances. His reputation also comes from the fact that he often spends years researching a single book before publishing it. This long process allows him to collect many sources and compare different versions of events before drawing conclusions. However, this same method also leads to debate, because some critics question the strength of anonymous information. They argue that without named sources, it can be difficult to confirm every detail he presents in his books. Still, his books often become widely read and discussed, especially when they involve members of the British royal family. This is because the monarchy attracts strong public interest, and any claim about its private life quickly spreads in the media. Weeks or months after his books are released, discussions often continue in newspapers, television programs, and online platforms. Readers and commentators debate whether his findings change how the public understands the behavior of powerful individuals. His work also matters because it adds to a wider tradition of investigative writing that tries to uncover hidden truths about those in power. Even when people disagree with his conclusions, they often still engage with the material and discuss it widely. We can also see his influence in how documentaries, interviews, and news discussions sometimes reference his books or ideas. This shows that his writing reaches beyond books and enters broader public conversation about the royal family and other powerful figures. At the same time, the discussion around Tom Bower highlights how investigative journalism can shape public opinion. It shows how one writer's work can influence debates about truth, privacy, and accountability in modern media. Many supporters believe his detailed approach is important for holding powerful people accountable. They argue that without investigative writers like him, many important stories might never become public knowledge. Others, however, remain cautious, saying that readers should always question the accuracy of any claim that relies on private or unnamed sources. They stress that careful reading is important when dealing with complex stories about public figures. Even with these debates, his books continue to be widely discussed in media circles and among readers interested in royal affairs. His work remains part of ongoing conversations about how the British royal family is presented to the public. So, what did the letter reveal? Did King Charles really criticize Camilla? Let's find out. The alleged secret letters. The claims about secret letters linked to King Charles III have attracted strong public attention, especially because they touch on his private thoughts and long history with Camilla Parker Bowles. These reports suggest that private correspondence, written over a long period, may reveal more personal and unfiltered opinions from Charles than what has ever been seen in public. The idea became even more widely discussed after the involvement of royal biographer Tom Bower, who is known for writing critical and detailed accounts of royal life. According to the claims, the so-called secret letters are said to be private communications in which Charles expressed his personal feelings about relationships, royal expectations, and the future role of Camilla. Supporters of these claims say that the letters give a rare look into what he may have truly thought during the most difficult years of his personal life, especially during and after his marriage to Princess Diana. However, it is important to note that these letters are not fully published in a complete and official form, and much of what is discussed comes from interpretations, reports, and selective references. One of the main points linked to these alleged letters is the idea that Charles may have had doubts about Camilla becoming queen consort. Some accounts suggest that in private writing, he may have expressed concern about public reaction, tradition, and the pressure of royal duty. These claims do not necessarily say he rejected Camilla personally, but rather that he may have questioned how the public and the royal system would accept her in that role. This has been one of the most debated parts of the story, as it contrasts with the official position that Camilla eventually became queen consort. Another claim is that the letters show Charles often felt trapped between personal happiness and royal responsibility. In this version of events, he is described as someone who deeply cared for Camilla, but also understood the expectations placed on him as heir to the throne. The alleged correspondence is said to reflect emotional tension, where personal desire and public duty were constantly in conflict. These reports present him as someone carefully thinking through the long-term consequences of every personal decision, especially those involving marriage and public image. Some interpretations of the letters also suggest that Charles was aware of how sensitive his relationship with Camilla was in the eyes of the public. At different stages of his life, especially during the early years of public controversy, it is claimed that he understood how damaging public opinion could be. The letters are said to reflect a cautious mindset, where he considered timing, reputation, and stability within the monarchy before making personal choices. This has been used to argue that his actions were not only emotional, but also strategic in nature. There are also claims that the letters reveal frustration with media attention and public criticism. According to these reports, Charles may have expressed concern about how private matters were being turned into public debates. In this view, the letters show a man under pressure, trying to balance his private relationships with constant public scrutiny. This aspect of the story is often highlighted to explain why many royal communications are kept private and why leaks or interpretations can create controversy. Tom Bower's name is often connected to these discussions because of his reputation for writing detailed books about the royal family and other public figures. His work is known for relying on interviews, documents, and insider accounts. However, even in discussions involving him, it is important to separate confirmed facts from claims or interpretations. The idea of proof in headlines can sometimes suggest certainty, but in reality, many of these stories are based on second-hand reporting or selective information rather than complete official publication of private letters. Supporters of the royal family often respond to these claims with caution, pointing out that private letters can easily be misunderstood when taken out of context. A single sentence or phrase, when separated from the full letter, may not reflect the full meaning or intention behind it. They argue that without complete access to all correspondence, it is difficult to draw strong conclusions about what Charles truly believed or intended at any moment in time. On the other hand, those interested in royal transparency argue that such letters, if authentic and accurately reported, provide valuable insight into how decisions are made within the monarchy. They believe that understanding the private thoughts of senior royals helps the public see the human side of figures who often appear distant and formal. This is why even partial revelations about correspondence can generate intense discussion and media coverage. Despite the attention these claims receive, there is still uncertainty surrounding the full content and authenticity of the alleged secret letters. Much of the discussion is shaped by reporting, commentary, and interpretation, rather than complete public access to the documents themselves. As a result, different readers may form different opinions depending on which sources they trust and how they interpret the available information. So, did Charles really oppose Camilla becoming queen? Or was he acting in line with the laws of the land monarchy? Let's find out. King Charles stand against Camilla as queen. The question of whether King Charles III originally opposed the idea of Camilla becoming queen has become one of the most discussed parts of modern royal history. It is not a simple yes or no issue. Instead, it is shaped by years of public pressure, private emotions, and careful royal decision-making that took place behind the scenes at places like Buckingham Palace. To understand the claim, it is important to look at the long relationship between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles. Their bond goes back many decades, long before either of them had the public roles they hold today. Over time, their relationship faced heavy attention from the media and strong public judgment, especially during Charles's marriage to Princess Diana. Because of this history, anything connected to Camilla's future title became sensitive and complicated. When Charles and Camilla finally married in 2005, the situation was still delicate. The public mood was mixed, and the royal family was aware that titles carried deep meaning. At that time, Camilla did not immediately use the title Princess of Wales, out of respect for the memory of Diana, who had strongly been associated with that title. Instead, she used the title Duchess of Cornwall. This early decision already showed that the royal household was carefully managing public reaction. The central claim that Charles may not have wanted Camilla to become queen comes from interpretations of how her title was discussed over the years. Some reports and royal commentators suggest that Charles initially preferred Camilla to be known as princess consort instead of queen consort. This idea was presented as a way to reduce public pressure and avoid reopening old emotional wounds connected to Diana. It was also seen as a way to slowly introduce Camilla into a highly sensitive public role. Supporters of this view argue that Charles understood how controversial Camilla had once been in the public eye. They believe he may have thought that the title queen would create stronger resistance and renewed criticism. In this interpretation, his concern was not about Camilla's position beside him, but about how the public would respond to her becoming queen in name. However, this is not the only interpretation. Other royal observers argue that Charles never truly opposed Camilla becoming queen in principle. Instead, they suggest that early discussions about princess consort were more about timing and public acceptance rather than a permanent decision. In this view, the idea was flexible and could change as public attitudes improved over time. Over the years, Camilla's public image did gradually change. Through charity work, official duties, and steady appearances alongside Charles, she became more accepted by many people in the United Kingdom and beyond. This shift played a major role in how her future title was eventually handled. As public opinion softened, the idea of her becoming queen consort became less controversial than it once seemed. In a key moment of clarity, Queen Elizabeth II publicly expressed her wish that Camilla be known as queen consort when Charles became king. This statement, made in 2022, helped settle many debates that had been ongoing for years. It showed that the highest level of royal authority supported Camilla's future role. From that point on, the discussion about Charles's personal preference became less central, since the decision had effectively been confirmed at the institutional level. Still, the original question remains interesting because it reflects the tension between private feelings and public duty. If Charles once preferred a softer title for Camilla, it may have been a strategic choice rather than a rejection of her future role. The monarchy often adapts language and titles to match public sentiment, and this situation was no different. It is also important to remember that royal decisions are rarely made by one person alone. Even though Charles is the central figure, advice from officials, communication experts, and senior members of the royal household all play a role. This means that any early hesitation about Camilla's title could have come from a wider discussion rather than Charles personally opposing the idea. Over time, the distinction between queen consort and queen also became clearer to the public. A queen consort is the wife of a reigning king, while a queen regnant is a female monarch in her own right. This difference helped explain why Camilla's title would not place her in the same category as figures like Queen Elizabeth II, who ruled in her own right. As the years passed, the narrative shifted from uncertainty to acceptance. When Charles became king, Camilla was officially recognized as queen consort, marking a significant moment in royal history. How did Camilla attain her royal status? How did Camilla's public role change over time? Let's take a closer look. The journey of Camilla's royal status. Royal protocol is the set of formal rules and traditions that guide how the royal family behaves, how they are addressed, and what titles they hold. In the United Kingdom, these rules are shaped by long history, written laws, and decisions made by the monarch. Titles are not random, they follow clear traditions and are often confirmed through official documents such as letters patent. These rules help maintain order, respect, and structure within the monarchy and the wider public life connected to it. In the British royal system, the monarch has the final say on many title decisions. However, choices are usually guided by tradition, government advice, and public expectations. For example, when someone marries into the royal family, they are often given a title linked to their spouse. These titles can change over time depending on events like coronations, deaths of monarchs, or new official announcements. Over the years, these rules have been adjusted to fit modern society while still keeping many old customs in place. Camilla's journey through royal titles is a clear example of how royal protocol can evolve. When she married Prince Charles, who is now King Charles III in 2005, she became known as the Duchess of Cornwall. At that time, Charles was the Prince of Wales, and tradition suggested that Camilla would take a secondary royal title rather than the title of Princess of Wales, which was strongly linked to Princess Diana. Because of public sensitivity and historical context, Camilla used Duchess of Cornwall in public life, even though technically she could have been called Princess of Wales. This decision showed how royal protocol can be flexible when public opinion and history are involved. Even though she was legally married to the heir to the throne, her title was carefully chosen to avoid controversy and confusion. She also used other regional titles in different parts of the United Kingdom, such as Duchess of Rothesay in Scotland. These multiple titles reflect how royal identity changes depending on location and tradition within the UK. As time passed, public attitudes toward Camilla slowly changed. She became more visible in royal duties and began to play a stronger role alongside Charles in official events, charity work, and state visits. By this time, she was widely accepted as part of the royal family, and discussions about her future title became more open. Behind the scenes, royal protocol was also being prepared for the moment when Charles would become king, which would naturally change Camilla's status as well. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away on the 8th of September 2022, Charles immediately became King Charles III. This event automatically changed Camilla's position from Duchess of Cornwall to Queen Consort. The title Queen Consort is used for the wife of a reigning king. It shows respect and high status, but also makes a clear difference between her role and that of a reigning queen. A queen consort does not rule, but supports the king in official duties and public responsibilities. Even this change was carefully managed under royal protocol. There had been long discussions in earlier years about what Camilla's title should be when Charles became king. At one point, it was suggested that she might only be called Princess Consort instead of Queen Consort, again because of public sensitivity. However, over time, acceptance grew, and it became clearer that she would be known as Queen Consort once Charles ascended the throne. This showed how royal traditions can shift gradually based on public opinion and modern expectations. Another important moment came during the coronation of King Charles III on the 6th of May, 2023. During this ceremony, Camilla was officially crowned alongside her husband at Westminster Abbey. After the coronation, she became known simply as Queen Camilla. This title is commonly used in public life, although Queen Consort remains technically accurate in formal contexts. However, the coronation marked a final stage in her transition from a private citizen to one of the most senior members of the monarchy. How did the public respond to these allegations? Did they agree with the monarchy? Let's take a closer look. Public reaction to royal claims. When claims about the British royal family surface in public, they almost never stay quiet for long. They spread quickly, especially in a world where social media, online blogs, and 24-hour news channels compete to break stories first. The allegations linked to King Charles III, Queen Camilla, and private royal discussions became one of those topics that immediately drew attention. People across the United Kingdom and beyond began reacting in different ways, and the media response helped shape a long and ongoing debate about truth, privacy, and the monarchy itself. One of the first things that happened after the claims appeared was a wave of surprise among the public. Many people who follow royal news closely felt shocked, not only by the content of the claims, but also by the idea that private matters within the royal household could still be leaking into public discussion. Some readers believed the claims sounded believable because they connected to long-standing public interest in the relationship between King Charles III and Queen Camilla, especially given their complicated history that dates back many years before they married. Others, however, reacted with doubt. They questioned where the information came from and whether it could be trusted. This group of people argued that stories about the royal family are often mixed with opinion, rumor, and interpretation. They warned that not everything published in books, interviews, or online posts should be treated as fact. For them, the claims looked more like speculation than confirmed truth. The media response was just as intense. Newspapers in the United Kingdom quickly picked up the story, with different outlets presenting it in different tones. Some tabloids focused on the most dramatic parts of the claims, using strong headlines to attract attention. These headlines often made the story feel more urgent and emotional, even when the details were not fully confirmed. This approach increased public interest, but also raised questions about fairness and accuracy. On the other side, more traditional and serious news outlets took a more careful approach. They reminded readers that royal reporting often involves sensitive information and that claims must be checked carefully before being treated as fact. These outlets included background explanations about how royal titles work, how official statements are released, and how rumors can sometimes spread faster than verified news. They also highlighted the importance of separating opinion from evidence. Online platforms played a major role in spreading reactions. Social media users across platforms shared their opinions instantly. Some users supported the claims and said they matched their long-term suspicions about palace relationships and internal disagreements. Others defended the royal family strongly and criticized what they saw as unfair attacks on personal lives. This division created a kind of online debate that continued for days. Hashtags related to King Charles and Queen Camilla began trending, and comment sections under news articles became filled with arguments. Some users focused on emotional reactions, expressing disappointment or frustration. Others tried to analyze the claims more logically, asking for evidence and reliable sourcing. Royal commentators and experts also joined the discussion. Many of them appeared in television interviews, radio programs, and online videos to give context. These commentators often reminded the public that the royal family operates under strict rules of privacy and tradition. They explained that even when claims appear in books or from authors like Tom Bower, they still need to be examined carefully. The involvement of writers such as Tom Bower added another layer to the debate. Bower is known for writing critical biographies and investigative works about public figures, including members of the royal family. Because of his reputation, some readers treat his claims as serious and well-researched. Others believe his work can be one-sided or influenced by interpretation. This difference in trust levels affected how people reacted to the story as a whole. Supporters of the monarchy strongly rejected the claims. They argued that King Charles and Queen Camilla have already gone through many years of public scrutiny, especially during earlier stages of their relationship. For them, revisiting old controversies felt unnecessary and unfair. They also emphasized that both figures now represent stability within the modern monarchy, and that repeated negative stories can damage public respect. Critics of the monarchy, however, saw the situation differently. They used the claims as an example of why they believe the royal institution should face more transparency. They argued that if public money supports the monarchy, then the public has a right to question what happens behind palace doors. Some critics also said that media attention on royal disputes reflects a broader issue about privilege and accountability. As the debate continued, talk shows and opinion programs increased coverage of the issue. Some hosts invited historians and political analysts to discuss how royal narratives are shaped over time. They compared the current situation with past royal controversies, showing that public reaction to royal news has always been divided. A key part of the media response was also about responsibility. Editors and journalists discussed the ethical limits of reporting on unverified claims. Some media professionals argued that even if a story is interesting, it should not be published without strong evidence. Others argued that public interest can justify reporting even when full proof is not available, as long as the reporting is clearly labeled as allegation or claim. This disagreement within the media itself added more complexity to the situation. Readers were sometimes left confused about what to believe, especially when different outlets presented the same story in very different ways. One article might suggest certainty, while another emphasized doubt. This inconsistency made the public debate even more intense. At the same time, defenders of King Charles emphasized his long public service, especially his role before and after becoming king. They argued that focusing on unverified personal claims distracts from official duties and national responsibilities. Supporters of Queen Camilla also highlighted her charity work and gradual acceptance into royal life over the years. For them, the focus on controversy felt like a repeated cycle that ignored progress. Meanwhile, some neutral observers pointed out that royal stories often follow a predictable pattern. First, a claim appears. Then the media amplifies it. Next, the public splits into supporters and critics. Finally, the discussion slowly fades, replaced by new news. They suggested that this cycle shows more about modern media behavior than about the accuracy of the original claims. Some users said they felt tired of constant royal controversies, while others said they enjoyed following them because they reveal hidden details about powerful institutions. So, what do you think about King Charles' secret letter? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.